everyone, it's Amy here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. So today I'm going to be doing my February wrap up with you all. I read 14 books in February, 8 paperbacks, 5 audiobooks and 1 ebook. I'm feeling really pleased about that. So as we've got a lot to cover, I will jump straight into the book, starting with my lower star rating. The first one goes to A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So this is the first book in the Persephone and Hades series. I listened to this one on audiobook. Essentially this follows the main character Persephone in modern day Athens, and she's a student journalist, and journalism basically puts her in the path of Hades, the god who runs various nightclubs and things around the city of New Athens. I thought the premise of this book was really good, and that's what really dragged me in. The idea of like a modern day Athens with the gods and things was something that really appealed to me. However, when actually reading the book, it just felt like 50 Shades of Grey with a few Greek characters thrown in. It's basically erotica with none of the preamble. Like literally within the first chapter, she'd met him, kissed him, was already falling in love, and it was like, whoa, okay, like it just went way too quickly for me. So yeah, I definitely won't be picking up the rest of the books in this series. At a 2.5 to a 3 stars, we have Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. This essentially follows our main character Clara, who's an artificial friend, so she's for sale to people to become their child's friend, and she is bought by this family and becomes a friend of a young girl named Josie. We quickly learn that Josie is unwell, but what she is unwell with never really becomes apparent, and the main focus of the book becomes Clara essentially trying to help Josie get better. It was very lyrical in parts, it had very kind of profound, lovely things that were being said. However, I just felt like there was not enough world building or explanation on certain aspects of the book to actually make the book enjoyable from the reader's perspective. I felt there were so many questions that I was asking and didn't really get the answer to. To me, it almost felt like a novella that hadn't been fleshed out as a full story yet. That's a shame, but hey ho, can't love every book, can you? The first of our 3-star books goes to A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is a fantasy trilogy set in London, but there are also various other Londons that the main character Kel can travel between, and all of these Londons are in varying levels of magical ability and how much magic can be used in those areas. So we have Kel, our main character, and then Leela, who is a young girl who then encounters Kel and they have the story together. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. It just felt like one of those meh kind of fantasy books that I could take or leave. I don't know if I will continue on with the series just because there are so many other fantasy books that I'm reading at the moment that are like on another level to this one. I think something that also affected my enjoyment of this one was the fact that I enjoyed The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue so much at the beginning of this year, which is a brilliant book, and I kind of expected maybe this story to have like a similar vibe, and it really didn't. It almost felt like it was written by a different author actually. Next for the 3 stars we have A Sweet Little Lies by Kaz Freer. So this is a thriller. It follows a main character who's a policewoman. We learn that years and years ago somebody who she knew went missing, a young woman went missing, and at the time her father lied about knowing who this woman was. Years and years later, now that she's a police officer, this same woman ends up murdered very close to where her father works. So this book is essentially the investigation into that murder, but also a look back at the father and what his involvement may have been or is to this day, what he's been up to basically. This was just a middle of the road book for me. I thought it was okay. I don't know if I really enjoy reading from the perspective of like police or people in authority who are like not doing their jobs particularly well. Like it just makes me feel uncomfortable reading that kind of stuff because I feel like they should do their jobs well. I know it's fictional, but the whole way along I was just like, you're a really bad policewoman. Like, you should not be doing the things that you're doing. I think that just affected my enjoyment of the book somewhat. I also didn't overly find the like reveal or the twist in the book to be overly surprising. I kind of guessed that that was what was going to happen and that was where it was going to lead. So yeah, I thought it was okay, but there we go, take what you will from that. Next for the 3-star reads, we have one that is quite popular at the moment, and so please take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. This is just my opinion. Sorry that this is your favourite book, but it's The House of the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This book, Definitely didn't rate this one as much as everyone else appears to be loving it at the moment. Basically follow a main character named Linus. He is a kind of government official who looks into orphanages where children of special abilities are kept, and he basically goes and audits them to make sure that they're behaving correctly and that the children are being kept safe. At the beginning of the book, he is sent by his company to a very kind of special orphanage. He doesn't really know a lot about it beforehand, and he gets there and all of the kids have like very, very special abilities. So there's literally one that's like the devil incarnate. So this book had a really interesting premise and I really wanted to enjoy it, but I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel the like love of any of the characters. I felt the characters were very on the surface and didn't really have much depth to them at all. I think potentially the book is a middle grade, but it reads like a children's book. Like it reads very much like Little Women in the way that it's very didactic. There's so much morals being thrown at you. The way some of the stuff is being described, it will be like, oh yes, you shouldn't kill anyone because killing people is bad. And so it reads like a kid's book in that sense, and that is something that I cannot stand. That specific kind of storytelling really grates me. I can't stand reading stuff where it feels like the author is just shoving something down your throat. Also didn't love the fact that they kept mentioning the main character's size. Like they kept mentioning the fact that he was overweight and that he had like rolls and parts of his body that were like knocking things off tables, and it just kept being mentioned. I just didn't think it needed to be mentioned as often as it was, because there was no like follow on from, oh okay, we're mentioning that this character is larger, but like why? Like why do we need to be told this so many times unless there's like a conclusion to that, or like a story or like something happening for that reason? And the only other reason is the very strong divide between good and bad characters. Like there was no one like kind of middle of the road. Everybody was like, oh, okay, it's clear that this character is being set up as the bad guy and this character is a good guy. And again, that's just not something I vibe with in a book. So there we go. The next book we have is a 3.5-star read, and that is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. So this one I actually made a whole video talking about all of my thoughts to do with the first 3 books in the Throne of Glass series. So if you're interested in that, it is a spoilery video, so I will link it around here if you want to go and watch that. Very briefly, this book I enjoyed. I thought it was okay all the way along. The final kind of few chapters definitely made it a 3.5-star read for me. I didn't think it was overly amazing, but definitely good enough for me to want to continue with the series. Moving swiftly on to our 4-star reads, and the first one here is Heir of Fire. This one is definitely my favourite of all the books from the Throne of Glass series that I've read so far. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Next for my 4-star reads is actually a graphic novel that I won on an Instagram giveaway of my lovely friend Hannah. I will link her down below if you want to go and check her out. Her Instagram handle is A Cup of Wonderland, and this one is Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. This book was such an enjoyable read. It has really beautiful colours on the artwork. It's one of the most diverse graphic novels that I've ever read. We've got queer characters, characters living with disabilities, Asian characters, just literally, it was just so wonderful, so heartwarming. And definitely one that I know I will pick up again in the future when I just need a little pick-me-up. It's got witches, werewolves and lots of magic, so who could say no to that? Next, for the 4-star reads, we have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I part read this one and part listened to the audiobook, only because I found the way it was actually written a little bit hard to read sometimes, especially if I was tired after a day of work. So basically this one follows 12 different women, all from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different religions, races, literally anything you can imagine. There's queer characters, straight characters, just all manner of different things in this book. Follow each character for a few chapters and then move on to a different one, but they are somewhat linked all the way throughout, so you can kind of see characters you've heard of before popping up in later people's stories. The issue I had when reading the paperback was the fact that there isn't a lot of punctuation in this book, and so when I was tired after work trying to read it, it's like my brain was just like, it didn't know when people were talking, it didn't know what was like what, and it just read it as one big text and it was confusing my brain. Definitely found the audiobook very helpful in that, because obviously the voices of the people and the narration just split everything up a little bit and it was easier to digest. What I really loved about this one was the fact that it had such a broad spectrum of people in the book, and the fact that none of these people were perfect. There was a lot of talk of feminism and religion and various different socio-economic issues and political issues, and it's very easy sometimes to pick up like a feminist book and it to feel like the author just has everything right and that they are telling you what feminism is because they know it and that is what you should listen to and that's what you should take in. But in this book there are so many characters that are feminists or say they're feminist, and actually you can tell that they're maybe a little bit wrong, or that actually they don't turn out to be very good people in the way that they're behaving to other people. There's certainly a lot of content warnings for this one, so if you want to read it I would definitely look those up because there's a lot going on in here. It is quite an intense read. I would definitely say that if you're listening to the audiobook it can feel like a little bit of an onslaught of information and people, and I definitely had to take a few breaks when I was reading this one just because it was quite intense. So yeah, really enjoyed it, but I'm not sure it's one I would read again purely for the intensity reason. It was quite a lot. Next for the 4-star reads is The Water Cure by Sophie McIntosh. So this book definitely took me a little while to get into. It essentially follows a family who've cut themselves off from the outside world. We have the mum, the dad and 3 daughters. We learn very early on that the father has passed away and that we're now following just the mum and the daughters living in this secluded place. We read through the perspective of the daughters in present day, but also get a glimpse back into their memories of when their father was still alive. They were running this secluded place as almost like a retreat for women who were seemingly trying to escape from men. Part of these retreats would focus around these therapies that the mother would provide for the women. In present day, there are no women, it is just the mum and the daughters, and she is continuing to give these therapies to the daughters. Then one day these 3 men arrive on the island, and it's how the mother and the daughters interact and cope with these strangers. These therapies that the mum does with the daughters and these other women are quite disturbing. It feels almost dystopian in the way that the daughters know nothing else of the outside world. They've basically been raised on this island or kind of secluded place where the mother and father have kept them away from everyone else on the planet and told them that men are bad, contagious, and that if they were to leave then they would die because there's just all manner of evil things out in the world that would hurt them. What I found so interesting was this idea of having a constructed world. Daughters had no concept of anything else other than what the mother and father had told them. Their understanding of love and physical affection and everything was just so well written to really make you think and really make you consider what it's like in our world and what is happening for these poor girls. How easily someone can be controlled and moulded into something quite awful. It was a somewhat difficult read, but the more I sit on this book, the more I feel I enjoyed it. Next for the 4-star reads is the ebook that I read, and that was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie McCasey, I think. This was a really quick read, definitely one I think I would pick up in physical format to be able to read to a child one day. It follows our main character, the boy, as he then encounters the other characters in the title, and he is essentially questioning life, love, friendships, everything to do with the world in these beautiful little hand-drawn illustrations, and all of the words and writing are all hand-drawn as well. It's just really sweet, definitely one I would recommend. Moving on to the 5-star reads for this video, and I have 3 to share with you. The first one being The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. We read through our main character who is a journalist, and she has been picked by a very famous Hollywood actress to come and do an interview. The actress is named Evelyn Hugo and she is renowned for never giving personal interviews, and she's very secretive. She's also had 7 husbands. Our main character goes along to this interview thinking that it's just going to be a short piece for the magazine that she works for, but actually it turns out that Evelyn Hugo wants her to write her life story, and she is ready to basically open Pandora's box and share everything from her life with this journalist. We then switch back and forth reading from the present day through the perspective of the journalist, but then also delving into Evelyn Hugo's memories right from the beginning of how she became an actress to then the present day. This book was tragically beautiful. It had a fantastic love story in it. Again, this was a nicely diverse book. We've got queer characters of lots of different races, and it was just so well written. Like, the audiobook was fantastic. I was so enraptured by it. It's certainly one of the best audiobooks that I've listened to this year, so I would highly recommend. Next for the 5-star read is actually my reread book of the year, and that's I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. I'm not going to talk too much about this one here, just know that I enjoyed it. I'm going to make a kind of wrap up of all of the rereads that I do this year later in the year, so you'll see that then, but it's still a 5-star read. And the final book I have to talk to you about again is one that I listened to on audiobook, and that is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. So this is a fantasy book, but a fantasy book like nothing I've ever read before. Basically follow 4 main characters on the lead up to a solar eclipse. We learn that there are various different factions or kind of almost like cults within this world. So we've got the people that worship the sun, the people that worship the crows, the people of the water, various different things like this. One of our main characters is a woman who has the ability to control the sea and also people's will by singing. Another of our main characters is a blind man who has the ability to see through the eyes of crows. So much going on in this book, I don't honestly think I can sum it all up, but just know it is one of the most unique and enjoyable fantasy reads that I've read in a very, very long time. Again, this was an incredibly diverse read. We've got people from all different races, we've got LGBT characters, as I mentioned there's a blind character. It was just hitting the mark for me on every single level. I thought it was fantastic. This is the first book in a trilogy and I cannot wait for the next one to come out. So those are all the books that I read in February. I would love to hear down below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. What have you been reading? Come and have a chat with me. As always, I will leave links to everything I've mentioned today down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day and I will see you soon. Bye!